This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 47 of the Three Skeevers podcast. I'm Icy with Icyfire Gaming, and I co-host with Grim over at Grimsforge Gaming. And in this episode, we talk about our training with Art of War, CP versus no CP, PvP, our thoughts on Plaguebreak being OP as hell, and we share some stories on guild management and leadership. Hope you guys enjoy the show.
Hey, Icy, how's it going? How's training been going with Art of War?
Well, it was going great before the IC event, and this isn't really a surprise to me because after these PvP events, it's almost like Mardi Gras in a way, where we've been partying so hard for a week or whatever, and then after that, it's just a desert. Nobody's here. Everybody's freaking dead on hangovers for the next couple days or weeks or whatever. So it's been pretty quiet for me the last week or so, and also just because it comes with the nature of PvP healing. Everybody and their mom wants the DPS, so the healers are naturally very, very rare to come by. So I do have my, the 3 or 4 or 5 people that I talk to, but aside from that, nobody new. So training's been pretty quiet the last week or so, which is fine by me though. But how about you, Grim?
It's been going good. I've actually got a couple people I'm steering towards you. They have multiple characters, and for us, we're gonna focus on one. Whether it be like support, tank, DPS, and then if they want to go the healer route, then or even the support route, I send them your way. So I have 2 other ones that aren't on your radar yet. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I like having more bodies to teach how to heal.
Yeah, it's been going good. Like, I think a common theme with the people that I'm working with is like damage is very high right now, and it's mostly, they're talking about Battlegrounds, and like when they queue in for Battlegrounds, there's just all this unavoidable damage, between Plaguebreak and Dark Convergence and everything else. There's a lot of really powerful stuff out there right now, and it's just not and it's a forced environment, like forced deathmatch environment, whereas we were just having this conversation in guild a couple days ago with Art of War, but at least when they had the objectives, it was a lower barrier of entry for people, plus build diversity too, but lower barrier of entry, and that I want a PvP, but I'm not good at it yet. I want to tip my toes in the water, but not get too sweaty. And the objective-based PvP kind of helped that happen, right? Because there might only be 1 or 2 people out of the group, or out of all the players that's just going sweaty and, trying to rack up as many kills, and then the rest are playing the objective. Or maybe there's one team that's just treating as a death match, but your team and the other team are playing the objectives, so it's not as sweaty as all teams and all players trying to kill each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I've noticed that there are a lot of people looking forward to the objectives coming back. And then
I will say I wish they just kept the queues separate, where they had a deathmatch solo deathmatch group, and then they had a objective solo objective group, and they just left it at that. I would be perfectly fine, because as you kind of mentioned a little bit, we're going to fall back into what it was before. We're going to have one team that just wants the deathmatch, and the other 2 want to play the objectives, and then who's winning at that point.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see too if there's a little bit of backlash or lingering effect from deathmatch only for however long it's been going, and when the objectives come back, do you think we're going to see more than normal people just playing as deathmatch anyways? Do you think that's going to be a thing because we've been doing just deathmatch only for X amount of time?
I don't know. All I know is that for the last, how long has it been? 6 months at least, just deathmatch only. I've been loving it. I've been having a blast the whole time. No complaints from me at all. And then the one time I somehow wind up in a objective queue, I'm just like, what the hell? It kind of catches me by surprise, because I'm usually duoing, and the person that has the lead will will queue us up for the group random one, and I didn't ask for that. But I am not too sure, honestly. I think people are gonna wind up doing deathmatch still anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least with the objective base, it'll give me a platform to put together a new build. Like, here's a PvP tank,
But
and
but equally, again, this kind of just comes back to, how I want the separate queues. So now people are gonna wind up with, because there's obviously builds that are best designed for objectives: capture the flag, running the relic, and deathmatch. 3 different builds to do 3 different types of things, so to speak. And I would much rather be a tank, knowing that I'm gonna be guaranteed an objective one, than be in a deathmatch. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because there's still uncertainty there with what if I queue up for this BG? I don't know what I'm gonna get, so I got to be prepared for all these different queues all these different BG battleground PvP modes I might get, which is fine for me because I do go in prepared, right? I'm usually prepared for if there's a second healer or maybe a third healer in the group. I'm always prepared for those types of things. But for majority of the player base, ain't nobody in hell gonna be as prepared as me, right, to that level. So it's gonna be something, all right.
I put something together on Blackbeard. He's a mag DK, and it's a tanky setup. And I wanted to take it into Battlegrounds. I actually put the build together for no CP Cyrodiil, because we've been running around out there and having a blast, right? No CP Cyrodiil is where it's at.
Oh yeah, 100%.
100%, without a doubt. And just a side note to reiterate that, last night I went out to CP Blackreach, and I took Kratos out there and joined a friend, and we were running around. And when you incorporate CP and you incorporate broken sets like Dark Convergence and Plaguebreak, I don't know how you're ever going to balance this game. Honestly, you're not ever going to balance the game. And then we're doing this hybridization thing too, that's going to, maybe what they'll say is it's going to make everything easier to balance, but I don't know about that. But anyways, I go out there just to kind of get a last taste of what it's like in CP Cyrodiil with those sets roaming free and CP and stuff like that. Super powerful. Everyone's running around out there right now. There's like these tower humpers that are trying to get their 1vx on, and they will get kills from time to time, right? Against people that are not ready. They don't have the right gear or whatever. They're not mid-level PvPers, right? They're just kind of out there, learning right now. And they'll get their 1vx against those people. And so I ran into a couple of those people, and so I just pursued them, and I felt their burst. And I told you this story earlier, but we were running around chasing this guy around a tower, and everybody, he probably had 5 people chasing after him, and they couldn't put enough damage into him. And I just stood back and watched for a little bit, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go. I don't have Kratos built for damage, but I can kill people, if that makes sense. And so I throw my hat in the ring and I start chasing this guy around, and I put some damage into him. He turns around and he does his big combo, and I might take 10% health. I lose 10% of my health, and this guy standing right to the left of me loses 70% of his health. Just gets absolutely blown out of his shoes. And that's the level, it's those people that are getting 1vx'd, against the tower humpers. So I chased this guy around for a little bit, and he and I had our run-ins where we fought each other, and he would try real hard, and I would just get my heals going and then put damage back into him. And I knew, I don't know if he knew, but I knew it was going absolutely nowhere. When you line up all your damage in your best punch and you're only doing 30% damage, in those moments to somebody, you yourself are probably not going to kill that good player 1v1. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, that's the state of the game right now before hybridization. Imagine what it's going to look like when you give that guy that one extra ability that doesn't scale properly right now, right? But he's going to make room for it on his bar because now it's too good to pass up because it scales perfectly, right? Due to hybridization. And maybe that's Resolving Vigor, or that's
It was Honor of the Dead from the Templar.
Honor the Dead. Oh my gosh, Papa Minburn, a buddy of ours, was like, dude, I got a 25k tooltip on my Honor the Dead, on my Stamplar. 25k burst heal. And that's cut in half for PvP, but you'll get him down under 50% health, boom. One press of a button back to full. Congratulations. And trust me, it's hard enough getting him there, you know? So I think what we're getting ready to see going into this new patch is a tank meta, and it'll feel tanky because of the cross healing problem and the amount of heals and the new hybridization scaling, and we might very well be running into tanky builds because damage is at an all-time high, you know, through CP and everything else. Like we there's nobody can argue this. We have the highest weapon and spell damage running around in the game that we've ever had before right now. And they're getting ready to say, whether it's a Magicka or Stamina heal, it now scales with your highest
offensive stat.
Offensive stat, and that's freaking scary. That is so scary. And so I'm retracting. I'm pulling out a CP. I'll go into Battlegrounds, and you know, I'll put some broken stuff together when it comes to going to Battlegrounds and stuff like that. And really, Battlegrounds aren't even that fun. You heard me cussing up a storm yesterday in Battlegrounds. You know, I was on that tanky build, and I went 6-4 and 38. 6-4 and 38.
That's a lot of assists.
That's a lot of assists. I was at over 2 million damage, you know, and my 4 deaths, out of the 4 deaths, 2 of them were an unbreakable werewolf howl. It could not break free, and they just killed me, you know, full stun, no break free. So annoying. But anyways, I don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith in the direction from a CP standpoint, right? Balancing is going to be a major issue, and I don't know that they're going to get around to it in a timely fashion. So
I know in our previous podcast episodes, not recently, but over the last year or 2 years, I think at this point, we've had several discussions on hybridization, on how, well, not really me, but you and our guest at the time would always be in favor of hybridization. Is this what you expected or wanted now that it's here? It's kind of like those things. I want this for Christmas. I want this. And then you've been talking about it for 2 years, and your parents finally get it, and you're like, this isn't what I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it's like, man, I'd love to have a Ferrari, you know, and say your wealthy grandparents are like, we're going to get you a Ferrari, and then you get it, and it's like a Ferrari pillow, or you know, it's like a Ferrari jacket.
What the heck? Or like a bed that's shaped like a car, you know?
Yeah, they got you a car bed, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So, hybridization, cool, but extremely scary if done wrong, like game breaking if done wrong. And I think implementing it without scaling it is not, I don't know. And see, I'm saying without scaling it, who knows? Maybe they're like, no, we've put great thought into the scaling of this, and it only makes sense. But class diversity was really cool, I think. I liked where we were at with class diversity, because when you're rolling up to someone, you're like, this is definitely a DK. Is it a mag DK or is it a stam DK, right? And then within that realm, what are they running? We know the meta type setup for each one of those, but then there's little differences, little nuances to that they can do. And so that added like great diversity in what you were running into. Now we're going to run into, I really think it's a DK, and they're going to be running meta or close to meta. And it doesn't matter whether it's stamina or magicka, meta will apply to the class as a whole, you know, and they could run a variance of abilities here or there, but to run it optimally, this is how people are going to run it. Will that stop me from running things optimally? No, but you know, there's a immense level of frustration that comes with that too, trying to play thematic and run off meta, right? You're willingly doing that to yourself. So
yeah, so
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I know for me personally, I always run off meta stuff, because if I just ran Pariah, Transmutation, Spell Power Cure, Magma, like every single BG, like what's the point of even making build videos at that point if I'm just running the same stuff on all my classes, right? That's why that's part of the reason why I deliberately don't do anything with those sets, because it's so boring. It's the same thing every other day, right? And I know people are like, oh, I was thinking about running, you know, Magma and this and Spell Power Cure and that. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Of course it's gonna work. I don't even have to try it to know it's gonna work, but you know, just trying to just be a little bit different, I guess. You know, just because, you know, the meta is the meta for a reason, because it's technically like it's like the most optimal or the best stuff at the time. But you know, the whole point of trying stuff new is because sometimes you can change the meta or influence the meta and change it because of your experimentation.
Yeah. You know, another thing about that too is when we get rid of a defined magic side and a defined stamina side, right? And that class diversity, like, or playstyle diversity, right? That's a stamina character versus a mag DK. They both played differently. Stam DK played differently than mag DK, and that was cool. And you would always, you know, some people just absolutely hated running into a mag DK. Some people absolutely hated running into a stam DK. And now it's just going to be now somewhere in between, you know. The other thing is, as soon as we started hybridizing classes and abilities and healing and armor sets, now all of a sudden it really brings the meta to a pinpoint, right? Like if you want to run the absolute most broken meta whatever right now, you put Plaguebreak on for sure, and no one can argue that. And you pair it with whatever else that's going to complement what you're trying to do. And like, I just did a video not too long ago where I just put the two most broken sets in the game together, Plaguebreak and Dark Convergence. And it just so happens that Plaguebreak procs Dark Convergence. I didn't even need to put a ground effect on my bar if I didn't want to. I just make sure that someone dies while they have Plaguebreak on them, and the explosion from Plaguebreak is a ground effect that triggers Dark Convergence. So,
yeah, that sounds ridiculous, and I cannot confirm that. And I know we were supposed to do the test real quick, Rim, before we did the podcast, but we can do it afterward because I do want to see this. If you say what is true.
I guarantee it works. I already know for a fact. I've already tested it. You just want to see it with your own eyes. But
yeah, because that's just ridiculous. Like if somebody just cleanses the Plaguebreak, that's if you put Plaguebreak on me and I just cleanse and that procs Dark Convergence, I don't even know what to say at that point.
That's the problem with Plaguebreak right now. You and I were having this conversation earlier. Plaguebreak, hands down, is the most broken set in ESO, and it takes the crown as the most broken set to date. And here's why. If we compare Plaguebreak, let's take its conception or its concept, whatever you want to call it. Its concept is, right, this is how you kill ball groups or zergs, right? This is to combat ball groups or zergs. Number one, it is silly to think that you will be able to release a set into the game with that function and not think that ball groups will use it.
Mm-hmm.
Ball groups in CP Cyrodiil, their frontliners run around with that set, using that set themselves and wiping anyone in their path. That's what you've done. There, and so what you should not, so what should have happened is we do not release a broken set into PvP environment to combat ball groups. You fix the mechanics of the game to fix ball groups. And if that means we go from the 24-man groups down to the 12 and then down to the 6-man, maybe we only allow 6-man groups and we do not allow cross healing. The only heals that group, those 6 people get, are people that are within their group. If you're running around solo, the only heals you get are heals from yourself, right? And so what's happening is these 12-man groups, ball groups, are running around built specifically with everyone doing cross heals, and they're just stacking hots, and their front lines running Plaguebreak, and anyone dies in their way, it's a lawnmower just cutting the grass as they cut through. That's what you've done. And so, but let's compare 2 armor sets that are supposed to be functioning on that same realm, right? Vicious Death.
Real quick, Grim, about the group size reduction. So I think, so what do you say to them when they respond with, we want to keep cross healing because not everybody can get a group, and we want them to contribute some way?
No, too bad. You don't go to you don't do an MMO, a massive multiplayer online, and go into a PvP environment and not jump into zone chat and say looking for group and just group up while you're running there. And if you run solo, you run solo, you know? Like, everyone can get in a group. What'll happen is it will start training the it'll move the way Cyrodiil zone chat works and how grouping functions work, right? And there will be people that don't mind leading a group and picking up people. And they'll even have a thing that they'll do in zone chat that just says, we're currently 4 of 6, Y up or X up or AO, Art of War, AOW for one of our last 2 spots in our 6-man group, or however it works. That's what it'll end up doing for those people.
Oh, so you're kind of saying that, but if they reduce the group size and they remove cross healing, it's actually going to change the ecosystem in Cyrodiil PvP to the point where everybody that's participating in the ecosystem is kind of going to develop or adapt to some way and then develop their own system to deal with the changes that ZOS have introduced.
Absolutely. Like that right there. And could we go out there, you, me, and Papa, and just stay to a 3-man group? Right. And we could have a blast. We could do just fine. But when we start running into 3 groups of 6 that are running together side by side, now they can't necessarily cross heal each other. It's based on how good those individual groups are. But you, me, and Papa are still running into outnumbered situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta be careful. But we actually have a chance to kill. If one of those groups is short on healing or has a weak link, right? We could actually start making an impact or a dent in ball groups. And like you and I said, we're going out to no CP Cyrodiil right now, and ball groups can die out there easily, right? We're already seeing that. Already see that.
They're not invincible because they don't have the proc sets that they would normally have in Black Reach or Grey Host.
Right. Now that might change a little bit with hybridization and cross healing not being addressed and whatever else. So that will get a little tougher. Maybe a lot. I don't know. We'll find out. But as of right now, yeah, we could go out there and we could kill ball groups. They're not invincible. So I don't know. But That's what I see. Yeah, the ecosystem. That's a perfect thing. Like if you want to survive in a massive multiplayer online PvP environment, then and there's strength in numbers, and you're getting murked or killed, trying to YOLO solo, then you X up in zone and jump in a group, meet new people, kind of promotes that thing. And then there might be like some people just like to play alone. Okay, well then go out there to Cyrodiil and play alone. Have fun.
Yeah, no complaints from them.
Yeah, solo queue for Battlegrounds, go to Imperial City and run solo, but don't go to a Cyrodiil and not expect to not get run over,
So since we were just about to, I think you were going to compare Plaguebreak and Dark Convergence. So if they do change cross ceiling, where they eliminate it, and they reduce the group sizes from 12 to 6 in Cyrodiil, do we still need to make any changes to these proc sets like Plaguebreak and Dark Convergence, or are they more I don't want to say malleable, but are they a little bit more acceptable to deal with those changes?
No, they still need addressed, in my opinion. Here's why. Compare Plaguebreak versus Vicious Death, right? They're supposed to have the same functionality. When someone dies, they blow up, right? But take Vicious Death as an example. Don't worry about the 2, 3, and 4 piece, okay? Just look at the 5 piece. And the 5 piece is maybe they explode for 20k damage, we'll say. So a player character is going to take 10k damage before resistances, right, are taken into effect. And the way Vicious Death is successful is you have to kill them, right? You have to kill them in order. You're wearing Vicious Death. You have to kill them in order for them to blow up. And there's no ramping effect to it. It's actually, Lisa explodes, does 10k damage to Todd. Todd explodes, and Lisa explodes, does 20k damage to Kyle. All three of them explode and almost kill the tank, or whatever. And that's how Vicious Death is dangerous. But you have to kill them. Mm-hmm. Now, and there's no status effects, there's no dot damage, there's no whatever. It's just boom, an explosion. Mm-hmm. Now let's look at Plaguebreak. Just the 5 piece. I like the 2, 3, 4 piece on Plaguebreak better. And with hybridization, you literally can put it on anything, so you can on Vicious Death as well. But with Plaguebreak applies a status effect. This is it applies the poison status effect, and there are classes in the game like DK that benefit from this status effect, or a sorcerer that uses force pulse, right? And if you read Force Pulse, you get the, elemental damage at the top, and then you get 2 targets that will receive 15k damage or whatever your tooltip says, that are affected with a status effect. Okay, well, guess what? There's a lot of people spamming AoEs, and you can almost guarantee in a CP scenario in Battlegrounds that everyone running around is running around with Plaguebreak right now, right? Everyone has COVID. So everyone's running around with Plaguebreak right now.
And we're demonetized.
Everyone's running around with Plaguebreak on right now, and there's nothing that you just zap a force pulse on somebody and 2 other people are going to take that huge tooltip or that big hit. And so that's a problem. It's got dot damage. It applies a status effect, and it also has a ramping effect to it. What is it? 50%. So when Kyle blows up, and Lisa blow up, there's 50 from Kyle, an extra 50% from Kyle, 50% from Lisa, an extra 50%. And so the explosion gets stronger and stronger, with everyone. And to further make things difficult with this set, healers cannot do half of their job, which is cleansing negative effects now. Wardens can't run Netch because they'll accidentally kill everyone in their group. You know, Templars can't use cleansing ritual willy-nilly. You know, you have to be smart with where and when you're using cleansing ritual. Somebody can't use the synergy of your cleansing ritual trying to activate the Nova and accidentally activates the cleansing ritual and kills everyone in the group. So healers are killing their group. And another thing, if all of that wasn't enough, I don't even need to kill them. If they have Plaguebreak on them, I put Plaguebreak on them, and any one of my group kills them, they're going to blow up, and all that crap happens. All that bad stuff happens, you know, from this set. That is broken. That's a broken set that needs to be adjusted, needs to be fixed. All right, way too many. Why would you not, on everything you run in CP scenario, not run that? There's no reason not to. Because even in a one-on-one, you're still putting a status effect on him, and you're putting dot pressure on him. And if I finally whittle Kyle down just as his buddy Jeff runs up, well, guess what, Jeff? Kyle's about to help me kill you, you know? And 3 different scenarios of that, or 3 different stories of that, right? I see we were getting chased by that Zerg, and we were trying to we gathered up all the mobs in the one room, and as the front 3 guys, which were the most tanky and aggressive guys, ran into the room, we blew up all the mobs.
Yeah, yep.
And then it was just the squishies, and then we went through and killed, you know, the rest of the group. We literally just gathered up the mobs and killed the mobs, and the mobs killed the 3 tanky guys, and then we ran into the hallway and killed the rest. And another story was we were chasing this guy that's running max speed and a teabagger, and so we're not going to let him get away, and he accidentally runs to a portal, right? I think he thought that he was going to weave in and out of the mobs, and it was going to create like a line of sight for him. I just put Noxious Breath on everything, which applied Plaguebreak, and then hit a spin to win, and all the mobs blew up and killed the guy, and we laughed all the way to the bank, you know? Like, I was like, what an idiot. Why would he do that? You know, like, it's so funny. And I go back and I watch that video, and it was like 12K, 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 you know, all those things exploding. You don't survive that. And the last story was I'm on Kratos, EP, DK. I'm not too far outside AD base. I come into a room where there's mobs in there, and I'm just farming Telvar, looking for fights where and when I can, and 4 AD come onto the ledge right above me, and they're going to drop down. This isn't their front porch, like right outside their base, but this is like just near the Sky Shard on AD side, right? And I'm down in this little circular room with a bunch of mobs running around there. So I see these guys up there, and they all start buffing up, and I'm like, okay, well, we're definitely going to be fighting, and I don't know how many they are. So I just gather up the mobs in the room. All 4 of them drop down, and I just spin to win and kill the mobs. The mobs killed all 4 of them. I didn't even have to fight them. I just gathered up the mobs and blew the mobs up and killed all 4 of the AD, you know? I'm like, funny, but broken. Funny, but broken. Like, that should not be a thing in PvP, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. That's frustrating. Also, another thing that's broken about Plaguebreak is, we just talked about, but the explosion is a ground effect, and it triggers Dark Convergence. And the way I found this out was I just channeled a heavy attack with a Force Pulse when I was doing build testing with Blackbeard, right? I did a ranged DK using Force Pulse, and he was wearing Dark Convergence and Plaguebreak together. And so there was a regular mob out in the world. I did a heavy attack Force Pulse into it, and just to see if it procced the additional damage modifier, and it did, which I figured it would. And so I tested that a couple times, but every time that mob died, when it blew up, when Plaguebreak exploded, it triggered Dark Convergence and pulled everything in and started a chain reaction. And So that's how I found out. And then I ran around in Battlegrounds, and you can see every time you kill somebody, it just triggers Dark Convergence, because they have Plaguebreak on it, and the explosion is a ground effect. But that's just way too much for an armor set in a game. And if you want to be absolute meta, you have to be running Dark Convergence or Plaguebreak right now. Dark Convergence, iffy. It's super annoying. It's really annoying when, like, you don't probably pick up on this a lot because you're running Snow Treaders, right, Icy?
Mm-hmm.
But the snare, the slow, the pull, and having to hold block every 7 seconds or less than every 7 seconds, that's part of Papa and my major complaint is CC immunity isn't working. And there are times where I'll get yanked from one Dark Convergence to the next Dark Convergence to, when you're just getting yanked around the screen, and that's annoying.
Oh, well, in terms of the CC immunity thing, I know, I'm trying to remember from like months and months ago when Dark Convergence first came out, they said that when they were theory crafting the set itself, in their PTS or in their developer studio, whatever you want to call it, that when they were testing it with CC immunity, nobody was ever getting pulled on it. So they decided not to make it a part of CC immunity, so you could theoretically still get chained over and over again. Otherwise the set wouldn't work.
Yeah, and see, that's the biggest frustration with the set is it does work that way. So where's the hot fix? Where's the hot fix to actually, like, oh, our bad, this is pulling people all over the place multiple times, so I don't know. And there's a slow to it too, like to get out of it, at which you wearing Snow Treaders, you wouldn't know, feel that.
Yeah,
So,
and I know even from my own experience, whenever I see Dark Convergence in BGs, because I play from, right, we have the DPS brain and then like the healing like support brain. I can be in the thick of it too with them, but because I'm always on the defense, right, it's a lot easier for me to react to a Dark Convergence comes out. So normally whenever I see it, my reaction is quickly to hold block for like a good 1 to 2 seconds, and then I just walk out no problem. Right. Yeah. And that, no explosion, nothing really kills me. So, but I see a lot of DPS players, they always get pulled in by it, but it kind of makes sense to me because you're kind of focused on doing one thing, and then, this animation comes out on the floor and now you got to do something else. But I mean, I understand why a lot of people get pulled in by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Dark Convergence is annoying, but it's not, it's annoying. I would say it's a clear-cut number 2, like annoying set in the game. Plaguebreak, hands down, is the top most annoying broken set in the game.
Oh yeah, 100%. It almost feels, sometimes even when I know it's coming, I hold block, it still does a chuck ton of damage anyway.
Yeah, and that more so has to do with block mitigation not working, right? Like you're clearly holding block and you still take a ton of damage.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because even though I'm holding block, I'll still survive, right? Where like, because BGs are a team of 4v4v4, right? 3 teams. And, my team and, one of the other teams will get nuked, but maybe me and one other guy will still be alive. And I know why I'm alive, because I was blocking the whole time. So I still take a chunk of damage, but I think it's just because so many people were exploding around me. But luckily I was blocking that I was able to survive all those bursts of damage. Right. So it's not that block isn't working. It's just that there's just so much amplification from the plague carrier stuff happening that it almost, to me, feels like block doesn't work.
Yeah, that could be. I know that block doesn't work from time to time, but I don't doubt that one bit too. It's just like we were saying, damage is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
So
especially when it's like, I can recover from burst no problem, but then sometimes there's just moments where you just kind of blink and you're gone, and it's just like, come on, like what the heck is this? And then of course my tooltip is like, oh, Plaguebreak, 25k, 32k.
Yeah.
and really there's nothing you could do about it, and it's just like, well, all right, that's just part of the game, I guess. And then you just kind of remember the guy's name and just be on the lookout for when it's going to happen the next time. So,
Yeah, speaking of 20K plus death recaps, did you see my Dreadcaller video from not too long ago? We're still having that problem in the Battlegrounds where you take the element damage.
oh, was that the one where the guy did a javelin?
Yeah, he did javelin.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, my theory when you were telling me about it, and I was speculating on what the reason was, and yeah, so yeah, same thing happened to me where if you're by the edge and then somebody knocks you back and you would normally go off the edge, you just kind of just instantly die instead. So it skips that whole animation for you because it's like, you're dead, we're just gonna bypass the animation and just send you to the grave, no problem. So in your particular case, you were just at the perfect spot to get knocked back the least amount of possible where you would fall off.
Yeah, so you're saying it didn't. That's what happened. What about the times where you take flight and you take the elemental damage?
Well, in terms of the Dreadcaller video that you wanted me to watch, that was the answer to that particular thing. It was the Luke Skywalker, shooting the missile into the Death Star, right? Like that guy javelined you in the perfect spot, and you were in the perfect spot, and unfortunately, that's why you died in that particular scenario. But to what you're saying, environmental damage when you get leapt on, I have no response to that. Environmental damage when you get a comet hit on you, I have no response to that. I'm trying to think.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. Those are the two most common things that I've seen where you instantly die from certain abilities. Is there any more?
Take flight. It seems to be the knock-up one. So like take flight and like the knock-up on the comet when it hits you. Sometimes.
Yeah, those are definitely the most apparent ones. But because I know the Mad Tinkerer with the little skeever that knocks you up.
Yeah, does that do that?
I've never seen anybody die from it. I know that for a fact, and I know
I haven't killed anybody with Volcanic Rune doing that, to my knowledge, either.
Yeah, same thing. So I think it's just those two abilities right there, Comet and the DK Leap.
Okay, so we already know that DK Leap needs to be reworked or like rewrote anyways, to make it work. But
all I know is I am holding out on the 2023 new DLC after the Ascending Tide when Cyrodiil gets removed and we have a new PvP zone. I'm already throwing all my chips in that basket.
He's like, wait, what?
Wait, what? Confirmation?
What are you talking about? Yeah. I think that's going to happen too. Like, what do they suspect the end of the Three Banner War is going to be? It's what they say it is. It's the end of the Three Banner War. It's not going to be DC, AD, and EP versus each other anymore in that same capacity. So.
Oh yeah, no, Cyrodiil it's 100% not going to be here. My I guess what I'm curious about is, because we have the achievement system, right? We have Emperor, we have all those types of things. So as much as I keep telling everybody that Cyrodiil will not be there anymore, it's going to be removed, people still need to get their achievements somehow. So I don't know if they're going to like maybe keep it there, but maybe rework some of the achievements. But then what about the people that already have it? Did they just waste the last 7-8 years of playing ESO to get their Emperor, and now that particular system is gone, so what does it matter anymore, right? Or like, what about me? I still don't have Emperor. I really don't really care for it. But when
let's get that for you, Icy.
It's just so much work. I'm not really too worried about it.
Let's do it.
But
a group of people together.
But if this new PvP zone comes out, what's going to happen to Cyrodiil? Because they've already said that they need to rework everything. So I'm pretty sure they're going to make a new zone where we don't have to come back to Cyrodiil anymore to replace it.
How do you think that affects PvP guilds? Like if that happens? Do you think there's like a ripple effect, like PvP guilds function differently if there's a new PvP, or it's just a different form of PvP? It's like introducing, horde mode or something, PvP horde mode or something.
Well, I think they're still gonna have the same elements of Cyrodiil with the sieging and things like that because a lot of people like it and stuff, and we already have those systems in place. Unless they're really gonna triple down on it and remove those elements and create something brand new, I can see it happening. And I would imagine those PvP guilds, they're just going to adapt, right? And there's going to be a quick rise to the top on who learns everything quickly and prove to be the most dominant in this new era of whatever the new Cyrodiil is going to be. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it comes down like the inner function of each guild, and how well they're functioning right now as a PvP guild. They have events going, and do the leadership get along with one another, or if they don't get along with one another, can they at least eliminate their footprint on top of one another, right? Like, Tyler and Kyle don't get along with one another, but individually they're both great leads, different in their own rights, but they're both great leads. So Tyler should make his best effort to run his own stuff, and not hinder Kyle, and Kyle do the same. And even though they don't necessarily get along, that's all for the common good, I guess. That's a thing, but.
Yeah, I know at least when we used to be in Northhold, I wasn't really. I know we started in Cyrodiil a little bit, but when I was running groups over there, I only preferred to do sewer stuff. So I would run my groups in sewers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything was hunky dory. I put in my. I would check in at the time and check out when I was done, and that was kind of it. Nobody, as long as you were running events, that's really all that mattered, right? Because you're showing activity within the guild. You're showing that people are here. The leaders are, given, FaceTime, right, with the guild and the community, things like that. So, because I think the most important thing was that it's not that we're all in Cyrodiil doing something with Northhold. It was just that we always have something going on. And I think that's kind of what matters. At the end of the day, right? That the guild is active in PvP.
Then, that's a hard thing to juggle too, right? Because the recruiting aspect, then the culling aspect, right? Going through and getting rid of the people that aren't actively participating.
Oh, I love culling. It's so good. Just kicking people out and stuff. Oh man, it's so. it's that famous line when. If anybody is familiar with minimalism, right? It's hard to throw away your own stuff, but it's a lot easier to throw away other people's stuff. So if you're looking to minimize and get rid of things, just have a friend come over and toss all your stuff out for you. Because that way, you're not going to be so sentimental like, oh, I don't want to throw out this piece of paper because my grandma gave it to me and she died 6 years ago and this, and that. It's just like, your friend's going to come over and be like, what's this garbage? And just toss it without even thinking twice about it. And then you'll forget and not have to worry about it. So
you know what? You bring up a great point there. Maybe that's an answer for some guilds on their culling process, right? You have a third-party person that's their job, and they have no sentimental connection with people. They just come in and they real matter of fact, they look at the attendance sheet and they say has not attended guild events. They look at Discord and interaction or involvement and they're like does not use Discord or has not been in Discord, gone.
So it's kind of like a fixer, but what's the other word for it?
A cleaner.
A cleaner. Yeah, cleaner.
Yeah, a roster assassin. Making up stuff here.
I mean, I kind of like that job, the roster assassin.
They're like, shh, he's in the room. He's here now.
Could you imagine having that on your resume? The roster assassin? Like what the hell is this?
Yeah, you're specifically brought in to
clean out. Yeah, like to cut people from their jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're the guy that delivers the pink slip.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But I can see it. So all that stuff is like a full-time job, right? Like recruiting, calling, and then, you know, assimilating, I guess. I don't know what a better word would be. Assimilating kind of sounds very Borg or shows you my nerdiness. That's a Star Trek theme. But
Yeah, that went right over my head.
yeah, we are Borg. But it's basically just we are a robotic, entity that all has one mindset. But
Oh wait, wasn't that like in Futurama with those little green guys?
probably that they use that same that same term or that
Oh,
same
okay, yeah. So
yeah
yeah, the folks in
one
Futurama,
collective.
yeah, they stole it from Star Trek. I would imagine then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all right, I gotcha.
yeah. Since Star Trek dates like 1800s, right?
Yeah. I know. I
But
think Outlaw might have been in one of the episodes too.
outlaw, yeah. Our older audience is like, hey now. So, but you're juggling that, right? And there's like a front end and back end to running a guild, and then you have to have your guild leaders that are actually running the guild outings, and then the guild outings can go way sideways too. Like some people want a backseat or side seat drive, right? And the guild leader or that guild whoever's running the outing, ends up having their vibrations are different than that other person's vibrations, and then they create static, right?
Hmm.
Or friction, and so that's always a tough thing. And the person that's running the outing has to try and keep the peace too. And if they feel like this person's just a bad apple, one bad apple ruins a bunch, then they need to message them, remove them from the group, and let them know why. And hope that it doesn't carry over into guild chat and create guild drama. Otherwise, they've just worked their way right out of the guild, right? You
Hmm.
gotta go, like, so it's
I
not easy, but you need a bunch of leaders. You need a bunch of people that can run the outings if you're going to have a bunch of events. Otherwise, one person's carrying it all on their shoulders.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that nobody likes backseat drivers like at all in any aspect, whether it's gaming related, whether it's real life related. I don't know anybody who likes backseat driving. And I know whenever I am teaching, helping another healer out or learn something, whatever, I'll say, okay, share your screen. We'll do, I'll watch you do a BG, whatever. And I'll tell them straight up, I'm not going to backseat drive because I want to see what you're going to do on your own by yourself. And then the next BG, then I'll backseat drive a little bit, provide some guidance, help you, help guide you in the right direction to, make certain plays or whatever. And then we'll see how you do in that perspective. Right. But, and I know from my own experience, like whenever you're doing one-on-ones, Grim, I usually try to hop in just so I can listen and just see how it's going, because for me personally, I love learning. I love just trying to gather knowledge at all times possible. And I know whenever you're teaching somebody, there's always a lot of knowledge to learn from. So when I hop in those sessions, I just have myself muted the whole time and I'm just listening. Right? It's like as if I walk into a karate dojo or whatever, and you're doing a session here, and I just come in and I'm just watching, right? And like, could you imagine? I'm just like, you say something, and I'm like, actually, Grim, that's not really how it works. This, and that, whatever. And it's just like, excuse me, shut the hell up. You didn't pay for this session, right? This poor guy, he's spending like, $100, $200 a month for the karate lesson here, and he's not paying for you to hear your nonsense. So shut the hell up, And like, I understand that. That's why whenever I do jump in like a private session, I just keep my mouth shut and listen, because I don't want to be that guy. Because I know if I'm in that guy's position and I'm in a one-on-one learning from somebody, I don't want freaking Joe Schmo coming in here interrupting my lesson. Okay, I'm trying to learn here. This is my time with the professor, not your time. So get the hell out. Why am I getting triggered? This isn't even about me.
Hey, that that saying, high tide raises all ships. I use that often, right?
My favorite phrase.
The high tide raises all ships applies to this scenario perfectly, in that each trainer should be elevating each other to a new level or a new status, right? And giving them props where props are due. And basically, we're talking about tact. And this is actually a guild killer. The lack of tact is an absolute guild killer. And a lot of the friction that happens between trainers is because they lack tact, and sometimes it's because they're they're young or immature, or they haven't been put in these scenarios, and they think now's my moment to interject and say my piece and say that's not correct and here's why. And that actually does the worst thing possible, and it puts doubt into the consumer or into the guild member's mind. Okay, like, here's my trainer, I'm assigned with my trainer, and then this other person says I disagree with the trainer, and now all of a sudden there's a conflict here. Like, I'm just here to get answers, and you guys are arguing about this, or you guys are going back and forth about that. And so let's paint this scenario and how it actually, I have this conversation all the time with gym owners, right? Pre-COVID, when I'm traveling around and I'm doing my consulting, and there'll be the head MMA trainer is butting heads with the wrestling trainer, right? And they both have the same goal, and that's for the person to win, right? Their client to win, but they both have a different way that they perceive it happening. So here's the scenario. The head trainer says, hey, look, we know that your wrestling is superior to this upcoming matchup, and we can go there whenever we want. However, we want to stand and strike because there's a greater margin of victory between your striking and theirs. They are lacking in striking compared to yours, and that's where your victory will be, right? It's not that that you don't have to go and wrestle with them and beat them. And then as the head trainer is explaining that to the client or the athlete, then the wrestling coach says, I disagree. I think that your wrestling is far superior than their wrestling, and that you can beat them any day of the week in wrestling. And wrestling is going to be how you win. And that scenario should never happen. That right there shouldn't happen, where the wrestling coach disagrees verbally and openly with the head coach. What should happen, if I were the wrestling coach, I would say, yeah, and you know what? If you don't like the way striking's going at any point, we just go to wrestling. It's always going to be there for you, right? That's the win. That's that wordsmithing. I used that a little earlier ago, but the wordsmithing, or the ability to use a little bit of tact, right?
Oh, remember that one time I said verbal jujitsu?
Verbal jujitsu, absolutely. And so whenever you're in a guild training session, or you're running a guild outing, if there's a side seat driver or a back seat driver or someone that interjects and says, I disagree with what you're saying, they're immediately in the wrong. Not because they disagree with you. Everyone has their own right to their own opinion, but because they disagree with you in the open, and it creates doubt. And that's not the atmosphere that's like conducive of learning. And so you need to eliminate that. And so everybody has to be on the same page and just say, I'm running this outing. If you don't like the way I'm running this outing, you're free to go in other outings or free to leave, and it never fails, but usually the person that is outspoken and states the problem, or says, I disagree, if they had to be manually or physically removed from the scenario, then all of a sudden they're going to go on social media, or they're going to go into the guild chat and create drama and, try and make a big deal about it and leave, right? And try and taint the rest. One bad apple ruins the bunch, and they're going to try and taint the picture. And it's like, look, we were all having a great class, a great training session, a great guild outing, a great whatever it was, until you disagreed. you know. So, and another scenario in the gym industry, which we run into this before, is I would say, hey, I'm going to give you 3 different armbar escapes and 3 different armbar defenses. Okay. And you give all 3 of them to all 3 options to the person. So that way it's like choose their own adventure. They can be exactly what they want to be. One of those is going to work better than the others for them. Right. And it's not my place to say, do this one because this one works for me every time. That's limiting them to your limitations. You know what I mean? And so bad trainers do that a lot. Bad trainers will limit other people to their limitations. It's never worked for me, so therefore it'll never work for you. And that's not true. Our job is just to give them all options and let them explore which works best for them. And those are the best coaches or the best trainers or the best, you know, both in game and in real world. So, and we talked about this before, right? A good trainer is like a zookeeper, and the zookeeper knows that how they handle the bear is very different than how they handle the tiger and very different than how they handle the snake. Each one of those animals has its own motivations, its own triggers, its own everything. And so the best trainers are zookeepers. They understand how to deal with every animal that within the zoo and how to get the results they need, you know. And so we run into that all the time, but lack of tact is an absolute guild killer, you know. The ability not to either communicate effectively with each other as trainers or remove your footprint from each other, right?
You think it's
You're
just you think
you're
it's
great
like
by yourself.
you think it's like a lack of experience to some degree? Like it doesn't have to be within like running a guild, but maybe just like life experience or something. Because I know, you know, I'm only 32 years old, so I've got some experience under my belt, right? But at the same time, I have a lot of self-awareness and to know when it's appropriate to say something, right? And if I was going to call somebody out, I think that would just because I have a grudge or something, right? Like I'm deliberately trying to sabotage you in some way. But aside from that, I would just either DM you, like either during it, so it's just like private to you or something like that, or I would just talk to you afterward about it, right? Like, hey, you know, and one example that comes to mind, you know, between me and you and Grim, I know, I guess, you know, it was like maybe months ago or whatever, but whenever you would talk about CC immunity, I think you would always tell people 6 seconds, and then it would kind of just like nudge at me or gnaw at me the whole time because
Right,
I know it's
7.
I know it's 7 seconds. I'm like, it's
Right.
7 seconds. Grim's he's saying 6 the whole time, but it's 7. And I think one time I was like, actually, Grim, I think it's actually 7 seconds, right? And the only reason I'm so particular about it is because when me and you were training, like 2 years ago, right? I made it a point when I was running my CC build with the immobilizations and the stuns, right? It was count to 4, count to 7, count to 4, count to 7. So I would always be up on those things. So for this particular scenario, right? Because it's absolute knowledge that I know. And then when I hear somebody, not that you're giving wrong information or anything like that. I mean, I guess you could say it's wrong information or something, right? Because it's 7, not
Totally
6.
wrong.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about it. I know where you're coming from in that correction in that moment. And there's a famous quote. It says, "Do not correct a fool or he will hate you. Correct a wise man and he will appreciate you." I appreciate you for that correction, you know? Like, I even know it's 7 seconds, but I'm saying 6 seconds all the time. And who knows how many people I've ruined their day because they're like, my CC immunity is supposed to be up right now because Grim said it's only 6 seconds, you know, or whatever. But who cares, you know? Like, I appreciate that. And so that doesn't bother me. The only time things ever bother me is like when we say, hey, here's your road to victory and here's why. And then someone says, I disagree. And it's fine. They can disagree, but that's a conversation that needs to happen behind closed doors separately so that can be It's not that me as a head coach, it's not that I can't be persuaded otherwise. If the wrestling coach and the jiu-jitsu coach and the whoever came to me and said, here's my experiences with this person and I think our road to victory, and they're all on the same page, then I'll go back and look at it again, and we might go with the consensus, what everybody says. Like, you know what, you guys are right. Ultimately, though, as a head coach or as the guild leader, it comes down to they need to make whatever call they think is best. And then whatever call they make, the raid leads or the trainers, they all need to fall in line. And if they don't fall in line, then there's a problem. So, and that's just the way that has to be.
So I just had an idea, right? So, like with the gym situation, how right now you're kind of in the mix of it all, and you want to get to a point where you have like your officers running the gym, and then you could step away and just kind of relax and then, work on the next big project, right? You think how maybe like, tying it back to ESO, like as a guild leader, maybe the guild leader wants to do the same, right? Where you are, you're running your events, on a weekly basis, maybe several times a week, whatever. But then you kind of want to eventually step away from that and just do more higher level managing with the officers instead. You think that those concepts would kind of translate over and still work?
100%. 100%. As a business owner or as a guild leader, your job is to duplicate yourself. You can't carry the burden. There's no quicker way to choke the life out of your business or choke the life out of your guild than to micromanage every aspect of it. That's proven time and time again, right? So, also, as we get older, we start entering the season of our life where it's important for us to start duplicating ourselves when we want to grow and scale our business. Like, I want to open multiple locations of our gym, and we are opening multiple locations currently. I cannot tie myself to the mat. Even though the mat is where I like to be. I like to be out there and training the athletes and working with the families and working with the kids, and I like that aspect that appeals to me, right? Everybody's like, I love, Grim as a trainer, and he's awesome, and high fives and smiles all around, and everyone's losing weight, and everyone's learning how to box and kickbox and MMA and jiu-jitsu and all this. That is where my heart and enjoyment is at, but I need to change that a little bit and not make it on the mat. I need to actually spread that across multiple locations and train the trainers to provide that same service. And I need to create the systems for each one of those locations to be successful. And as a guild leader, that should be your job as well. Don't tie yourself to every single run unless you're just secret boss or whatever. What's that series called where you actually own the company, and then you're just coming in, going through the hiring process and the training process to see like checks and balances. And
like, I don't want to say undercover boss, but like
undercover boss, maybe that's it.
Maybe,
yeah,
like a secret shopper as well.
Yeah. That's your role. And if you want to run a class or do personals or do whatever, you could do that. But create a system and duplicate yourself. So that means that you should be training trainers or training guild leader or guild raid leads, to your standard, and then just let them work. Don't micromanage them. Let them go to work, and you're looking for a particular quality of, what are those qualities, like their demeanor, how they handle stress is an important thing, how they handle that moment where someone disagrees and they need to remove someone, how they handle duress, that's super important. Because in the gym industry, we could have somebody that's just awesome with kids, awesome with parents, awesome with everyone, and you get the one Karen. You know, you get the Karen that demands a refund and starts yelling and shouting or whatever, right? And say that one trainer that has been exemplary up until that point loses their shit, you know, and they just start trying to fight Karen or trying to like they have a shouting match and then they create this huge scene, this huge drama or whatever,
And
you know.
somebody's in a headlock before you know it.
Somebody's, yeah. And so, and the police are called. Now the police are sitting out in front of your facility or whatever. And, or in ESO world, you know, this drama carries over to guild and then 4 or 5 other people are chiming in. And now next thing you know, 3 people leave guild, right? This is the chain reaction that happens and how guilds die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is things like this. And then a raid lead leaves and another raid lead leaves. And then somebody that thought that they were better than everyone else, and what are they even doing here? Well, this is the straw that broke the camel's back, and then they leave, and you know, it ends up just being an absolute train wreck. And and Icy's doing the Pepe eating popcorn emote.
Oh yeah, yep. I love those
totally
Pepe. Yeah, no, I love those Pepe emotes. They're so good.
I totally picture you using that emote.
Oh, I totally would.
Yeah,
I do them at work too. Like somebody will say something, and then I'll just do like the thinking, like put your hand on your chin, like, huh, okay.
Yeah. We see that stuff kill guilds all the time. So it's just a tact and communication needs to happen. And if you just think there's too much of a character difference, characteristics or mannerisms difference between the two, like it'll fall on the guild leader to decide, does this person have the best interest of the people that run with them? Yes or no? And if yes, you know, is there an ulterior motive? Like, are they just trying to recruit people to like them and those people will go wherever they go? Then that might be a problem, you know, and maybe you want to limit their exposure to everybody. In the gym industry, this happens a lot. People don't get attached to the facility, right? Where they're learning boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, whatever. They get attached to their trainer. And if your, you know, MMA trainer leaves and goes somewhere else, well, the whole MMA team is sitting here going, like, I trust this dude with my career. I trust this dude with my hours and hours of with my body, right? Like my well-being, my career, my time, my everything, my most valuable asset. Where they go, I go. And the same thing happens with your raid leads. You have to trust that the raid leads are actually dedicated and loyal to the guild, and they're not just operating within the guild recruiting for themselves, right? So that's rough.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me back in 2000, maybe 2005, 2006, something like that, over at one of the barbershops I used to go to. I think it was called like Jan's Palace, Slovakian guy, nice guy. And so it was him and one of the local guys. I think his name was Brian, I want to say, something weird like that. And so one day, Brian just disappears. And so Jan, he's talking to me and my father, and he's like, yeah, no, Jan was pretty pissed because Brian, he up and left, took all his things and bought a place, like 5-10 minutes away and started up his own barbershop, right? And so Jan was really upset because, he brought him in, he taught him everything, like taught him all about the business and stuff. And then he kind of, the kid kind of turns his, kind of like, I guess, betrays him in a way, right? Stabs him in the back by opening up a competing business. And unfortunately, me and my dad, we like Brian. Brian always cut my hair, right? So that was unfortunately the last time we went to Jan, and then we just wound up just going to Brian's place the whole time because, we were really cool with Brian, very nice guy to us and everything. And, I ain't gonna say, this is like a 15-year-old story at this point, but Brian cut my hair better. Right. So, same thing that you're saying, Grim. We stick with the trainers. We followed him over there, and then we've been going to him for over 10 years or whatever, back when I was still living over there. So yeah, and I don't think he meant anything like malice about it, but I think Brian's perspective was that he could make more money if he started his own business, right? Just because, you know, being an employee is one thing, but being an owner is another. So
Yeah, that's one of the things. So in the gym industry, you have to make sure with your trainers that your trainers are taken care of, and that they're treated well and they get everything that they need to be successful. And you also have to have a conversation with them so that they understand the risk and reward and the overhead. You, as the gym owner, all of the risk and all of the overhead that you're taking on to give them that place to excel in. They need to understand that, because a lot of people will, trainers will look at it and they'll say, well, I'm only making X amount for my personals, or I'm only making X amount per membership, per person, or whatever their pay arrangement is. And if I owned my own place, I'd make it all. But they don't take into account the overhead and the startup cost and everything to start their own thing. Same with ESO and starting your own guild. You have the guild leader that's taking on the recruiting, the calling, the acclimating people, the schedule to get trainers lined up, the training of trainers to make sure that the product that's being presented to the, you know, customer or the guildy, you know, new prospect is, you know, acceptable. And there's a lot of hours that go into that, and a lot of time and effort, and sometimes missed sleep and stuff. And so you always have to point that out to like trainers and let them know, you know, hey, if you want to ever go your own route, I want to help you do that.
yeah,
I want you to stay here, but if you ever want to go your own route, I want to sit down with you and look at the numbers and make sure that that you understand fully what you're doing, because it'll make you appreciate even more what you have here.
right.
I know what you have here, and maybe you don't, and I want to show you that, you know. And if we were to sit down and we were to look at the numbers, and it was doable, say they'd been saving and set money aside, or they put a pitch deck together and they got investors on board, or whatever it is, and it was doable for them, I want to help. I want to be involved. Let me help you. You know, we run something successful here, and you want to run your own successful thing. Use our systems that we've implemented, you know, to do that. And so that's another thing with Art of War, why last week or whenever I brought it up, if Art gets to a point where he is operating this first guild very well, and maybe he's almost acting like an absentee owner in the business world, where he doesn't have to run the guild outings, he doesn't have to handle the recruiting and the calling and the everything else, and he's just the guild leader that is there to answer questions and direct traffic. That's an ideal situation for him. Once he can get to that point, then there might be an option to open a second guild, and he could create the guild and create the same systems, and now all of a sudden Art of War goes from 500 to 1,000 members, and it's Art of War 1, Art of War 2, you know. And I was joking, he was like, heck no, you know, and I was like, I would be all for that, though, because of the atmosphere that they're creating, that's very conducive of learning, friendly atmosphere, and for all levels. Like, it's a very low barrier of entry. You know, you want to learn about PvPing, that's the barrier of entry. So the lowest bar. So that's something, yeah, that exists in the business world and in, you know, guild world. And then there's been other guilds that we've worked with, and they weren't able to ever get that systems in place, you know, and it ultimately was kind of their undoing because of the weight that comes with juggling all of that. So, and I realize this in the business world. When I run into a gym owner and they might be a second degree black belt, and I ask them, what do you want to do? And they say, I want to franchise my gym. I want to have my name over 100 buildings or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, well, who are you going to get to run your classes? Oh, no, no, no. Like, people love me because I'm like, well, how are you going to open 100 gyms and be the guy on the mat at 100 gyms? You need to think about this. Your job right now is to duplicate yourself and create the systems for those individuals to be successful. So, yeah.
No, that makes sense to me. And the idea, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work running a guild, and I can't even imagine the thought of, say we hit max capacity and then we open up a second one, right? Like it's very daunting. And I know we've spoke about it in the past, maybe like 2 years ago before we created the Imperial Sewer Council back in the day, that, yeah, let's make our own guild and whatever. And, I know you were on borrowed time back then because, we didn't know what the situation was with the gym and everything. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. And actually, now that I think about it, back when Blood was playing ESO and running Northhold and stuff, he only ran one event. He was the guild leader, but he only ran one event, and that was on Saturdays. I think just the Cyrodiil runs for like 2-3 hours Saturday nights in Blackreach, and Sunday through Friday it was all the responsibility of the officers to keep the guild afloat, so that people see that there's activity going on at all times every day.
Yeah,
and that's what mattered. Yeah.
You know what that did too? That really brought a level of prestige when Blood's running and calling the shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted to, Blood was like, I'm leading Saturdays because I'm going to march us into victory.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. It was really epic, too, every single time. And he even did those custom messages or, what's the phrase?
Like a synopsis.
The synopsis of the night, like what happened and all these different things. And he had like a ranking system and kept tallies on everybody. It was really cool. He had a really nice system over there. It was really awesome
too. Like, wasn't it amazing? Like, he did it a little RP role play ish, like too, right? We marched onto the battlefield and put our boots on, DC's throats. They thought that they could fight back. Early in the night, we showed them different. AD, tried to push us up into the north. We were backed all the way to our backs to the wall, and then we rallied together and we fought, our tails off. And
we'll always remember the Chalamo or something like that.
Yeah, that right there. Like he summarizes it all into this amazing, exactly how the night unfolded in Cyrodiil. So.
Yeah, did you know he actually writes?
I wouldn't doubt it for a second. I thought those were beautiful.
Yeah, no, he had like a secret hidden text channel that only some people had access to. I was one of them because I had found out through me and him conversing that he writes fantasy, not anything fancy. He's not like J.K. Rowling or anything like that, but just, his own little private stuff based on the Ebonheart pack and his character and all these different things. He just writes, small short stories and all those things.
What the heck? I did not know this. Boy, if you're listening, you're holding out on me, man. I need this. I need this in my life.
Yeah, it was really cool. He even had like drawings and stuff all up in the text channel there, hidden in the Northhold Discord. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Darn. I believe it though, because those were masterful.
Oh yeah. And I guess last point before we wrap up here, the one other thing that he did was we had weekly meetings with the officers, and he'd always start the meeting with, Icy, how you doing mentally? I'm like, all right, I'm good. Morrow, how you doing mentally, right? He always do a mental check with us to just see how we're doing, like with the game. Do we still want to play? How are we feeling with this and that? What are we thoughts, whatever? And then we'll address weekly topical things that come up within the guild that, we should discuss or put our foot down on something, whatever. So yeah, I mean, he had a great system. I enjoyed it when I was an officer back over there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Did you know how Blood and I met and how we got involved with Northhold?
I'm trying to remember because I know that it was in the sewers on EP side And was he lost? And
Yeah, I was on Witcher. I was getting ready to take Witcher out to test a build, and Witcher hit really hard around that time frame and super durable. And just like everybody, you either see it in zone chat, how do I get out of this place, right? You're down in the Imperial City sewers and in base, and sure as can be, someone's always like, how the hell do I get out of here? Well, so I'm always keeping an eye for zone chat, right? To pick up the stragglers or help the people. You always give me slack for, just grabbing and meeting new people and stuff.
yeah, what does Papa say? Oh, Grim found another stray.
Yeah.
Not insulting anybody, but Papa said it, not me.
Right. But so I'm always keeping an eye to that, and I'm watching for people that are just kind of milling about aimlessly, And Blood was on his character, never seen him before down there, and he's opening up his map, and then he closes his map, and then he opens up his map, and then he walks like 4 steps, and then he opens up his map, and then he closes his map, and I'm like looking at him, I'm like, this guy's lost. And so I message him and I was like, hey, did you need help? And he's like, what? And I was like, did you need help? What's going on? He's like, no, I'm just going to run sewers for a little bit. And I was like, cool, I'm getting ready to test a build for the channel. Did you want to go? And he's like, yeah, can I bring some people? Well, it turns out the reason he was opening his map was he was trying to get the guildies from Northhold to join, and he was messaging people, and he was also keeping track of what was going on up in the districts to decide whether he was going to go in the sewers or up to the districts, like where the fights were at, right?
Oh,
and
okay.
Northhold is a bunch of bloodthirsty heathens, right? They would appreciate me saying that, by the way. That's not a slander or anything like that at all. That those guys love to fight. And so anyways, Blood jumps into the group and like maybe one other person, 2 other people, and we're going, and things are just getting blown up. Witcher build hit super hard back then, between the blast bones and everything just hitting all at once. And so he was like, Jesus, what are you running? And I was like, yeah, it's a bow. I think it was bow, Stam Crow. And he was like, what the heck? And I was like, yeah, man, it hits hard. And then he's like, I'm going to get some more guildies in here. And like, I'd like a couple of my guys to start running that. And I'm like, yeah, it's really stupid damage. And it lines up really well. And he's like, yeah, it does. And then I was going to the middle. I was going to pull, how I do the build tests?
Yeah, pulling all 3 banners.
I pull all 3 banners and fighting 3, banners all at once. And so I told him, hey, I'm going to do that. And, some of the guys struggled a little bit because they're like, holy crap, that's a lot of damage, and I was just kind of weaving in and out, fighting everything or whatever. And later, that's what he said. Like, we weren't in voice chat until later. And he was like, I'm not going to lie, when you said that you were testing a build for the channel, I thought, oh, here we go. Here's the next greatest YouTube content creator, or, the next 1VXer, doing something. He's like, but that build is freaking gross and, unorthodox, like not meta. And I was like, yeah, most of my builds are that. And we just started talking. And then that's when the whole, hey, like training some people and everything kind of started unfolding with Northhold. It was really cool. And I was really impressed with Blood too, by the way, with all the systems that he had in place for Northhold. It was pretty impressive. He did a great job there.
Oh, okay. Now it all comes full circle. Because I think from when you told me back then, it was like just a quick 1 minute
the
thing.
Condensed version.
Yeah, super condensed version. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think we're at an hour and a half of this particular episode. Do you have any final words, Grim, before we close out?
Nope. I see Coffee down there in the audience. Hi, Coffee. How's it going? We can't hear you, but I see you down there, buddy.
Acknowledged. Okay, so that is the end of this episode. As always, we have an audio version that you can find on Anchor. You can check out the link there in the description below. And of course, we have a Discord where you can find us and hang out with us and Do we put a link to the Art of War Discord as well, Grim, if people want to join up?
Yes. You know what? I need to double check that I actually put that on the Art of War podcast in the descriptions. I think I did. No
Okay,
problem.
cool. If not, it'll be in the description for this one.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, with that said, we'll catch you guys next week or whenever we decide to do another one. See ya.
Bye. You're going to say bye-bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Rogonian.